I wasn't paid my salary, neither for the contract nor the salary. They didn't pay anything at all.
The Russian army is experiencing an epidemic of hepatitis and other infectious diseases, including HIV and tuberculosis, threatening a public health disaster. It has resulted from the Russian military ignoring its own recruitment rules and poor medical hygiene in the field. The Russian war blogger Anastasia Kashevarova writes that the army faces the threat of a hepatitis epidemic, from the front to the rear. The front, of course, is a breeding ground for diseases, viruses. Where there is death, disease, and its carriers, rats, mice, lice, are constantly wandering around. The origin of the problem. The problem is that when they miscalculated at the beginning of the special military operation, and the army suffered losses, and then the mobilization was still partial, they began to take soldiers from prisons and with hepatitis and HIV, and now they are recruiting only such people. Wagner even had a separate project called Umbrella for those with HIV, hepatitis, and other socially dangerous diseases, but they fought separately from everyone else. Also, various gypsies and local unreliable contingents got soldiers hooked on drugs. I will write about drug trafficking in the new territories, occupied Ukraine, in detail separately. Drugs equals infection with HIV, hepatitis. In captivity, our soldiers are specially placed with tuberculosis patients, HIV-infected people, so that they get infected and take all this to the Russian Federation. Problem: no prevention, no treatment. Being in the same trench, on the same operating table, hepatitis and HIV are transmitted from the sick to the healthy. This can happen during a blood transfusion, or it can happen in army life. Right now, there is an epidemic of hepatitis C in the army. Hepatitis does not manifest itself immediately. Not only fellow soldiers are at risk, but also loved ones and relatives when a soldier is on leave at home. They don't discharge you with hepatitis. You continue to fight. You take tests, then repeat them 6 months later. At the same time, there is no treatment for hepatitis in the army. No one is registered. For example, in Moscow, there is a special center where only Muscovites can get expensive medications for hepatitis. But military personnel, even Muscovites, cannot get the medicine, since they must be treated by the Ministry of Defense. Solution. Currently, when a soldier is diagnosed with hepatitis, they are registered for dispensary observation, on paper, and in some cases not even that, for 6 months. Then tested again after 6 months, and then sent to the Military Medical Commission. Again, not always. No one is being treated. In the Army, they do not give therapy even for HIV. It is necessary that the Ministry of Defense treat hepatitis and HIV, as this is not just a threat to one person, but a threat to everyone who serves with the soldier and to his family members. As far as I know, the main military medical university has purchased drugs for the appropriate treatment. Another issue is that there may be problems with their distribution and uninterrupted supply to each individual soldier. Keep accurate records of soldiers with HIV and hepatitis. Inform fellow soldiers about the disease. Conduct mandatory medical examinations among personnel and an expanded examination after captivity. This, of course, may seem ridiculous, especially when we send untreated people to the front line and you can't get a military medical commission. Civilians really need to think about the threat of an epidemic of socially dangerous diseases. Hepatitis, HIV, tuberculosis. These are now in the Army and are spreading to the frontline regions, and will continue to spread further into Russia. Soldiers have previously complained about the lack of treatment for HIV and hepatitis in the Army, with relatives describing it as a slow death sentence for them. Very often they were infected in prison colonies, where infectious diseases are rife. The Army has for some time been ignoring its own rules about recruitment and discharge. Although its rules say that soldiers with infectious diseases are barred from joining and must be discharged if diagnosed, in practice, this doesn't happen. People with infectious diseases have often been treated badly by military commanders and have been used as disposable infantry. Ironically, this may have increased the chances of infections being transmitted between men as they get wounded. The Wagner Umbrella Unit for infected men, which Kashevarova mentions, kept its members separate, behind barbed wire, and used them as mobile targets to identify Ukrainian firing positions. Russia already has one of the highest HIV rates outside Africa, with over 1.5 million cases as of 2021, 10 times the EU average. It's virtually certain that when the war ends and soldiers are demobilized, there will be a drastic increase. Another captured Russian soldier is complaining that he wasn't paid anything. Moreover, imagine this: his dreams didn't come true. He also claims he has no idea how he ended up in an assault unit, since he was promised something completely different. Yeah, such a shame.
I wasn't paid my salary, neither for the contract nor the salary. They didn't pay anything at all. Because I'm not very bright. If I were a bit smarter, I would never have gone. What can I say? My wishes didn't come true, and it wasn't worth it. They didn't teach me to shoot, tactics, combat, fighting in buildings back and forth. I don't understand how I ended up in the assault troops. Lead me. They said I would be carrying water to the trenches, food to the soldiers. In short, I wouldn't be participating in combat operations, but I ended up in an assault company. The assault troops did not train me, they trained separately. I went on the mission untrained. The commander threw us into a hot situation. He simply did not consider us as people. Whether we perish or not, what about us? How? He didn't really care. I didn't see any evacuation. The wounded had to fend for themselves. If they managed to get out, they were lucky. If not, then so unlucky.
A U.S. Army service member allegedly gathered classified materials and stole equipment from military vehicles in an effort to obtain Russian citizenship. According to details released by the U.S. Department of Justice, 22-year-old Taylor Adam Lee, stationed at Fort Bliss, was identified by Army counterintelligence and the FBI for attempting to transmit national defense information and technical data to Russian intelligence services. The FBI's investigation revealed Taylor Lee allegedly attempted to provide classified military information on U.S. tank vulnerabilities to a person he believed to be a Russian intelligence officer in exchange for Russian citizenship, said Assistant Director Roman Rozavsky of the FBI Counterintelligence Division. In June 2025, Lee allegedly transmitted export-controlled technical information on the M1A2 Abrams tank online and offered assistance to the Russian Federation, stating, "The USA is not happy with me for trying to expose their weaknesses," and added, "At this point, I'd even volunteer to assist the Russian Federation when I'm there in any way." In July, at an in-person meeting between Lee and who he believed to be a representative of the Russian government, Lee allegedly passed an SD card to the individual. Lee proceeded to provide a detailed overview of the documents and information contained on the SD card, including documents and information on the M1A2 Abrams, another armored fighting vehicle used by the U.S. military and combat operations. Several of these documents contained controlled technical data that Lee did not have the permission to provide. Other documents on the SD card were marked as controlled unclassified information and featured banner warnings and dissemination controls. Throughout the meeting, Lee stated that the information on the SD card was sensitive and likely classified. During and after the July meeting, Lee discussed obtaining and providing to the Russian government a specific piece of hardware inside the M1A2 Abrams tank. On July 31, 2025, Lee delivered what appeared to be the hardware to a storage unit in El Paso, Texas. After doing so, Lee sent a message to the individual he believed to be a representative of the Russian government stating, "Mission accomplished." In April of this year, a former U.S. Army intelligence analyst was convicted in the United States for selling classified information and confidential documents, including materials related to the war in Ukraine. It was noted that Corbijn Schultz had been sentenced to 7 years in prison for conspiring to collect and transmit information about the national defense of the United States to an individual he believed to be connected to the Chinese government. Among them were a U.S. Army document analyzing lessons learned from the Russia-Ukraine war, some technical instructions, as well as data on American military satellites and missile defense systems. For this activity, the sergeant and intelligence analyst received $42,000. In August 2024, Schultz pleaded guilty to the charges that had been brought against him earlier.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.